Previously unscheduled JQI seminar. We're very happy that we are able to have an extra JQI seminar this year with such a distinguished speaker. Ennio Arimondo, as I'm sure many of you know, is one of the iconic figures of coherent atomic physics. Back in the 1970s with Gaussini, he discovered dark states, and that discovery has engendered a whole field of research that extends to things like coherent population trapping, velocity selective coherent population trapping, electromagnetically induced transparency, and lasing without inversion. All has arisen from that those early experiments. Ennio was involved with very strongly with the work on velocity selective coherent population trapping, which figured in the 1997 Nobel Prize for Claude Cohen-Tanucci. He's pioneered any number of techniques with atoms and optical lattices, and today he's going to talk to us about cold Rydberg gases.
Thank you, Bill, for the introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation. I was here 6 years ago, and I'm surprising the kind of activity which has been going on in the last few years. So I will present what we are trying to do in a smaller place, some limited financing. So we've been working since 3 years on cold Rydberg gases, and both on Bose-Einstein condensation and on a MOT. I will present you what is the present status of our progress in the area. So these are the people which have been involved. So this is the group in Pisa, which is an experimental group, and mainly I should mention Mathieu Vito is a postdoc, arrived in Pisa 3 years ago, bringing all the knowledge on Rydberg from Pierre group in Paris, and so it's the one that really started. And this last part, which is also a collaboration with the group in Ossé, Pierre and Daniel Comparat, and we have now a student which is Paul Willery, which is a co-tutel, something new in Europe. So you're getting PhD from 2 different institutions. So you're getting only one thesis and 2 titles.
Do you get 2 degrees or 1 degree?
2 degrees. Yeah. So this is something which is very popular in Europe. So we should follow. So okay. So there are 4 parts which I will present. I will start something about Rydberg. What are the properties of Rydberg? Why they are interesting for cold atom community. Then I will discuss about Apparatus. We made a lot of technical effort in order to have some specific detection of our Rydberg. And then I will present 2 different parts. The first part is Rydberg excitation on a BC in finite geometry, confined geometry, and then something about excitation statistics in a MOT. I will explain why the first is in BC, the other one is a MOT. Okay, now, there's been a lot of proposal try to use interaction between Rydberg in a Bose-Einstein condensate. Normal type of interaction one is dealing is this sort of interaction, where in principle by using phase reconnaissance, then the scattering length will be larger. So this is a tool if one to make a strong interaction in the system. The other possibility is trying to use a dipole interaction. And so having dipole, which are, say, induced dipole or different kind of dipole, and this interaction have an amplitude that could be quite larger. So in principle, we can create an interaction between this ultracold atom, and they could be also quite large. By changing the different states, in principle, we can have all this kind of interaction. There's been some review by the group Mach and Levenstein. We made some important points, and there are several reasons why this is interesting. They are long-range interaction, so they are interactions which are completely different from the contact one, which is very limited range. These are long range, and in principle, by changing the state, so we are going to use a different Rydberg state of atom. By changing the state, it's possible to change the length of the interaction. So there's a very large flexibility. There are interactions which are typically anisotropic. This is also something important feature. And there have been several proposals. I understand probably also Peter Zolla presented 1 week last week. These systems are able to create all different kinds of new quantum phases. This is an enormous number of theoretical proposals which are showing that the Rydberg interaction could give several interesting phases. And well, we are not close to that, to be honest. Okay, so I understood there should be also some interest for solid-state physics. This is what was told. And so we are making something which is a quantum simulation. So we're trying to use this ultracold atom to simulate a system which are typically in solid-state physics. And this is some sort of summer school lecture here, which are claiming that the systems which are only dipole-dipole are not typical in solid-state physics. So the mainly case is ferromagnetic system. But in ferromagnetic system you may have some different sort of interesting geometry. So if you are putting your dipole in a solid in some regular geometry, and then you are orienting the dipole in different direction, you have something which is called blockade, something which is these ferromagnetic phases. So all these phases which exist within the solid-state physics could be simulated by experiment performed on atomic physics. So this is the effort which is effort presented here is something which is going in this particular direction, which is an important direction for the present status of ultracold atoms. The second direction, which is also important, is something which is coming from these two papers here. One is Steve Rosson is photo. And so this was the idea that, again, Rydberg interaction could be used as a quantum gate. So let's suppose that you have your atom, which are spread in a regular structure, an optical lattice, and then try to making some sort of quantum gate based on the interaction between every atom. So this has been done in an experiment by Manuel Bock, who was using this contact interaction I presented before. But the contact interaction has a time of operation typically around 1 millisecond, because the interaction time depends on the strength of the interaction. Instead, if we're using this Rydberg interaction, then the interaction is typically at least 10 to the 4, 10 to 5 times larger. So it means 10 to the 4, 10 to 5 times faster. So by using this sort of interaction, it should be possible to create gates which are much faster than the one which have been used for ultracold atoms. So these are the two different directions which are important for the development of Rydberg atom in ultracold atom in Rydberg state. Okay, so let's say something about Rydberg. So Rydberg are made by one atom, which is going very large excited state. I will deal with the rubidium. So there's one atom in external shell. This atom is going to be excited very far. And there are different properties of this particular orbit. The first property, the radius is getting very large. So if we're going to number which are around 100, so the atom is now orbiting with 1 micron radius from distance from the nucleus. The lifetime is much larger. It's increasing as n. N is the quantum number. We are exploring quantum number between 40 and 80. N will be between 40 and 80. So the lifetime is going as n to the third power, and we can get the lifetime which are around 1 millisecond. So states which are stable enough for doing any kind of operation, quantum simulation, which are typically on a scale which could be 1 microsecond or a fraction of a microsecond. Then another important property is that these atoms are very close to the ionization limit. So there's a very small gap between the Rydberg state and the ionization limit. And if we apply an electric field, this electric field is able to ionize the state. And so it's possible to transform the Rydberg atom in an ion, which is creating a nucleus and an electron. And then by collecting the electron or ions, we have a very good information on the Rydberg. The field is decreasing as n minus 4. So for typically atom which is again 100, field are around 10 volts per centimeter. So the field which are needed in order to analyze the system are very weak, and then there's on the side is the problem. The field should be very well controlled, because fields which are even weaker than this one could be also completely mess the Rydberg state. So this is an advantage for controlling, but this also imposes some requirement on the control of the system. And then the last important point is polarizability. So the system have a very large dipole moment, because the dipole moment is going as n square. It's a very large area, so they have a very large dipole moment, and this is the reason why they are so strongly interacting. So we have two Rydberg, which are in this very large excited state. They have a very large interaction, dipole-dipole interaction.
So some of these properties depend upon what the nature of the Rydberg state is beyond its principal quantum number. So for example, a high angular momentum state is going to have a different lifetime from a low angular momentum state. What about some of the other things?
Well, the thing are more or less the same. The only point which is mainly different between different angular momentum states is the lifetime.
Okay.
There are states which are this circular state which are discovered by Kepler, and which are being used in the Serge Roche, which have a fantastic lifetime which is enormous. It would be very interesting if somebody is trying to create a Rydberg in an atom in the circular state. I think it's feasible. Yeah. It's not easy, but it's feasible. So at this point, the lifetime will be much longer than 1 second. In fact, at this state, I'm convinced that they are pretty important.
But the other things like ionization, polarizability are not affected much
Well,
by the...
they are not the same. But
No, but not dramatically different.
They're not
the
dramatically
lifetime
different.
is. Yeah. And
Okay.
the scaling is the same.
Scaling is the same, yeah. Okay, so the idea now having two different Rydberg atoms, which are both of them excited to the inside our system, so they are interacting for some because they have a very large dipole. There are two kinds of interaction we should consider here. The first one is a dipole-dipole. So if we are applying electric field, this electric field is going to make a permanent dipole moment in the system. If there is no electric field, there is no permanent dipole moment. So if we're creating an electric field, then there is a permanent dipole moment, and then they are interacting by this sort of dependence, R to minus 3, which is not isotropic, because there's a different sign depending on the orientation of the dipole, parallel or orthogonal to electric field. And this interaction is typically larger than the second one. So the second one, instead, there is no electric field. Still, the atom have a probability of making a sort of transition between different states, and this is a van der Waals interaction. So it's an induced dipole interaction. So this is has a different dependence on the distance. This is R-6, and there's a choice operating present on electric field or without electric field. I will present the results which are both of them. In most cases, we are relying on this one. So this is weaker than this one, but still is quite larger. Typical value of this van der Waals interaction are around between 10 and 100 megahertz. So this is a typical interaction of the state that I'm going to explore. And so this could be much larger. Okay. Now, the most obvious way of monitoring what's happening is something which has been called the dipole blockade. Right? So dipole blockade is presented here. So let's say now by some proper excitation laser we are transferring an atom from the ground state to a Rydberg state. So we have an atom within our sample. Now this excited state now is this dipole, which could be a permanent or induced dipole, some dipole. So it's interacting with all other atoms which are neighboring one. But then, if we have now another atom which like to go to the excited state, making also a transition from the ground excited state, this atom is going to interact with this one. So this atom is producing a shift of the energy level of other atoms which are nearby. Typically, we're using a laser, which is a narrow band. So the laser, which was driving this transition, now is no more able to drive this transition because the new transition is now out of resonance. So if an atom is inducing transition, then atoms which are neighboring one, they are now blocked. They cannot be excited. So we are, as soon as we're creating one excitation, we are blocking all the possibility of excitation all around this single atom. So this is something which is quite important and certainly affecting all the properties which are happening in this system. So what is the volume space where this is happening? Okay, so we should consider how large is this interaction here, this shifting. We should consider the line width of the transition. Of course, it's a laser, it's a broad bandwidth, then this laser which is able to make this transition is also able to make this one. So we should compare the shift to the line with the transition. The line transition is given by the spontaneous emission or the Rabi frequency, depending on the range. So this is a balance that we should consider. But the final result is a volume around our atom where all other atoms are not anymore blocked. So there is a volume of dipole blockade. The radius of this volume is changing with a different state. So different state, as I said before, a different kind of interaction. As we are increasing the excited state, the interaction is larger. So this blockade radius is increasing. In the range we explored, well, probably it's going above 15. So we are exploring something which is going between 1 micron and 30 micron. Okay? So the experiment will present this sort of blockade. So in all this region, we are able to excite only one single atom, no more than one. Well, the situation is not, this one is slightly more complicated and also more interesting. So what I presented before is this idea, and we are exciting this atom, yeah? So we have this, there are an atom within that dipole blockade, and there is one particular atom I which we are exciting. Okay, but all the atoms within our volume are supposed to be completely equivalent, so we don't know which is the atom which is going to be excited. So it could be any of these n atoms, they could be, all of them could be excited. So when we are making the excitation, we are not creating this particular state which is individual excitation, but we are creating a collective state. So what we should describe with our system by this particular wave function. So all of them, all the possibility of this n atom, they could be excited to the Rydberg state. So we are making a superposition of all these states. So we are creating a collective state. This is needed for normalization. Okay? So we have this particular state, which is an entangled state, in fact. And this state has been called a superatom. So we are creating this volume, which is all this volume within the dipole blockade. This one single excitation. This has been called a superatom. There's some discussion about theoretician that the superatom is not a good description, different description. So this is well, I will try to say something. Now, another important point here is what's happening to the probability of excitation. For this particular case here, a single atom with a probability which is Rabi frequency, omega 0. But now they are all these components. Each of the component of this entangled state has the same probability omega 0. So finally, this particular state has a probability of excitation, which includes a square root of n of the number of atoms which are part of this superatom. So this particular state now has a probability of excitation which is much larger. So if we now put in n which is 10 to the 4, okay, and then square root of 10 to the 4, 10 to the 2, sorry. So in principle, this collective state is evolving much faster than a normal state. That's something which is important if I'm going to look for quantum gate. Okay, well, there are several evidence of this dipole blockade. Probably the strongest one is the one by the group of Granger in Orsay. They made an observation, 2 atoms. So now this is a very simple system. So the entangled state I presented before is now 2 atoms. 2 atoms which are separated by 3.6 micron. Okay, and they are creating this entangled state of 2 atoms. And of course, they are creating a dipole blockade, which is much larger than this one. So 1 atom is blocking the second one. So what is compared here is the in red, the oscillation, the Rabi precession exciting 1 atom only, and this red point here. And then this omega 0, the Rabi frequency is applied. And then in blue instead is what's happening when we're exciting 2 atoms. And I said before, now the Rabi frequency is square root of 2 times omega 0. So the system now is evolving. It is a collective state is evolving much more faster than a single atom. So this is a clear evidence that in this particular case, an entangled state of 2 atoms were created, and you see the major number here is fitting with this square root of 2. So this experiment was a difficult experiment because 2 atoms are observed, so there's a lot of optics which need a special optics was created for this observation. What interesting step is now going into something which is more 2 atoms. What's happening if we're getting a system which has more, many more atoms and much more complex structure? Okay, so let's consider something which is more complex here. There are atoms, which are atoms typically ultra-cold atom, okay? And then we are making this sort of collective excitation. So we are now creating all of this volume, which are now all this superatom. So how this excitation, there are some questions, how this excitation are going to be distributed in space? They are trying to find some sort of organization. They are random, they have some periodic pattern. And then other important point, which is a theoretical point which is coming out of the experiment, how we are going to describe this sort of system with all this excitation. The problem is getting very, very complex because the number of atoms we are dealing is quite large, the number of excitation is large, so they are, the theoretical tools are not obvious. Okay, so this is introduction, and well, I hope I gave you some idea on Rydberg state and what we are aiming for. No question? So,
well, actually, it
Never given this one.
It seems, well, you said quite correctly, when you have a big system that's larger than the blockade radius, then it's extremely complicated. You drew that cartoon, but of course the blockade areas are actually overlapping with each other. They're presumably because something is at the edge of one blockade area is clearly going to be influencing and influenced by atoms that are in the neighboring blockade area. So there's not even any kind of delineation of what constitutes. And what and maybe that's all you were saying was this is very complicated. I'm just wondering how does one even think about such a thing? It's obviously highly entangled, but it's entangled beyond and in a non-uniform way. That is, the atoms that are close to each other are strongly entangled, whereas atoms that are about a blockade radius apart are probably not as strongly entangled. If one can even quantify what one means by the strength of the entanglement.
Well, I completely agree with your statement. There's no, to my knowledge, a real theoretical effort which is solving this problem. And this is going to be needed because our experiments are closer to test this one, and probably other experiments will test it. So this is a question which is not probably addressed. There are the main contributions are coming from Igor Lezanovsky, which was before in Innsbruck, now is in Nottingham. He's the one which made a lot of effort, and he addresses some of the question, but does not address the full question that would be interesting for an experimentalist.
In an experimental condition, how many atoms in a sphere?
Well, now, it depends on the density.
Yeah, but what's the
we are typically, I will show, we are putting a few hundred. Yeah. Okay, apparatus. Okay, let's say something. Okay, the apparatus, the typical apparatus of ultracold atom, as you may see in different labs, so I will not say anything here. And so let's say something about how we are excitations on. Okay, so there are now, first of all, as I said before, these atoms are very sensitive to the electric field. And so we have been decided to operate with a quartz cell, that everybody who is being excited in Rydberg state will not agree to do this sort of stuff. Instead, we are brave and we decide to do it. So at the point we are placing electrodes which are outside this quartz cell, this is the cell at the center is the Bose-Einstein condensation respondent. Then we are creating Bose-Einstein condensate with a dipole trap. There are two dipole traps which are crossed. By changing the intensity one being with respect to the other, we are changing the length of our system, our condensate, and this is mainly a condensate which is elongated. It's not fully one-dimensional, but it's a system which is quite elongated. I will say something later. And then we have lattice beam because we are creating optical lattice. We have a channeltron. So our detection is based on what I said before, the ionization. So we are ionizing at Rydberg, and we are collecting the electrons which are coming out. So we are this channeltron, which is collecting electron, and the idea having a large efficiency. So we like to have as much as possible electrons which are collected. So we are using glass cell for maximum optical access. We have this external electrode and this channeltron, which is located. The channeltron is located 14 centimeters far from the distant cell. So this was not the best choice. But when you are doing an experiment to BC, you don't. You use it until you can do everything. Okay. So this was what. Okay. Now, what about? So first point. Use of electrode outside the glass cell is making a very bad phenomenon. Charges are formed on the wall of the cell. Okay, so it's not clear why this is happening. There are probably some sort of impurity which are releasing this electron. There are theories mainly by Madame Bouchard at the time of optical pumping. She is the one who studied this sort of stuff. And so there are electrons which are around. These electrons are sticking on the walls, and they are creating spurious electric field. So the electric field that you are creating at the end is something that you cannot control. Well, and this is an example. So this is an excitation or two-photon excitation to the 81D. This is auto resonance. This is a two-step process which are here. And this is what's happening when we are applying the electric field, when we are exciting our system, and sorry, not electric field, and we are exciting our system at time 0. And then you see this spectrum which is cannot be understood in simple terms because this spectrum is deformed by the charges which are on the walls. So by this, from the spectrum, it's possible to derive the electric field which is created by the charges, which is around here, 0.2 volt per centimeter. And then we've been waiting for 1 hour, and you see, by repeating the spectrum, it appears that the charges are disappearing. These charges which are created on the wall, they disappear. So if we are creating something, we are creating something at the beginning, this charge will taking, we are creating there, and then they are emitting for very long time. So this certainly is very bad for any kind of experiment. What we have discovered that if we are applying electric fields which are very fast, a time of a few microseconds, there is no charge on the wall. So this is something which is so miraculous. So it seems that the charges they needed some time to get out of this impurity and then distribute it. If we are switching on and switching off electric field on the time scale which is around 10 microseconds, the system is very well controlled. So we are eliminating this problem which is probably very bad for lot atomic physics experiment, and this is just a,
So applying an electric field.
at the right time when we're doing everything,
Yeah.
and then not keeping the
In order to do the excitation in a field,
Yeah, and then
turning it off
immediately
avoids the problem.
Okay.
But if you apply the electric field for much longer than the 10 microseconds, then you get these
yes.
straight.
And it's not clear how long we should apply. It seems depending on some other, depending on humidity and some other condition. So it's not clear how long we can apply electric field without charges. Okay, certainly over in millisecond range charges are applied, but if we are staying below the system, it's very well. There's some bad days, some disaster. We don't know why.
Now, so when you say that it's humidity, then that would mean that this is something that's happening on the outside.
It's possible. It's possible because the idea, there's some theory that this electron are released outside, and then glass is conductive, has some conductivity. So these electrons are going inside and are probably attaching to the rubidium, which is deposited on the inside the cell.
Really? So
This is
that sounds fantastic.
This is what
In a bad way.
all the paper by Madame Bouchard.
Yes, in a bad way, yeah.
Fantastical, I think.
That an electron would be formed on the outside of the quartz cell, migrate through the quartz, and find its way
to some, and then it will attach
something on the inside.
because rubidium minus is very stable, so we form some rubidium minus. Okay, in here, this is the point we learn and we solve it. Okay, so at this point we have a very good. If we are operating the system in this way, we have very good control. And so we can make follow the state, out state, out changing expansion of the electric field. And these are different states, different M states, which are of the 77D state, and there's this sort of structure which is predicted by the theory. So you see, we are able to control the field at a level which is around 20 millivolt per centimeter. So this is the level of residual electric field we are operating. Okay. Which particular scheme we are using for excitation? We are using a scheme which is different from all other groups which are working in Rydberg. So we start this way, we've been keeping this way. So we are exciting, so atoms are prepared in this particular S state, 5s, F equal 2. And then we are excited to the second resonance state, the second P, to the 6p3 alpha, by light which is 421 nanometer. And then from this state, we're getting a second photon, which is a red photon in this region here, which is making excitation to the Rydberg state. From a P state, we can reach either S state or a D state. We can reach NS or ND. Okay, so we are typically exploring this range. We cannot. We can go also above the ionization. We cannot go below n equal 40 because this electric field ionization became the electric field required for ionization for n is smaller than 40. It became too large, and then we have some problem. So we are typically operating this range, which is quite large. And then we are operating this photon, which is out of resonance, 1 gigahertz. And what is important is the two photon radio frequency, which is around this range, 30 kilohertz. So this is the probability of exciting one atom inside the system to the upper state. Now, other group, also here, Steve Roston, they are typically using excitation for S5P. So this is the resonance line, and then another laser around 480, which is going 5P to the N state. We have some advantage here. So we have a larger dipole moment here. No, sorry. No, we have a more power on the second transition, which is compensating for the smaller transition dipole moment. So we can get a larger radio frequency here on the second transition. There's one drawback, and the following one, which is not in other scheme, that it's possible to atom absorbing two blue photons. So the second photon is ionizing the system. So if one atom, instead of absorbing one blue plus red, it absorbs two blue photons is ionized. Now, in the operating region that we are using is this one. The probability of ionization is 10 to minus 7. During 1 microsecond pulse, we have only probability 10 to minus 7. So the probability of ionization for our system, which is around 10 to the 4 atoms, 10 to the 5, is very small, and we don't have any contribution for direct ionization. Okay, we are locking the two lasers to a Rydberg cavity, which is coming from Louis some time ago, and then we are getting a stability which is stability probably. I would say something about stability. Now we have calibrated the system, so we like to know exactly how many Rydberg we are creating. And so we like to know also exactly how many electrons we are collecting. So we performed some ionization experiment. So we measured in the past all different ionization cross-section for 2 photons, blue photon, 1 blue plus 1 red. So now we are going directly to the continuum. I'm not going to Rydberg state, directly to the continuum. So it's possible to derive from the cross-section that we have measured how many atoms we are creating in our typically a mode. We are operating this experiment with modes which are very small. Small, I mean 10 to the 3 atoms. So modes which are very, very small in order to control exactly what's happening in the mode volume and also know exactly how many atoms we are creating. So we are starting from a larger mode, and then we are scaling down, and finally we are arriving to a mode which has the same number of atoms as typically BC. Okay, final result. Okay. So, this electric field which is ionizing the Rydberg. Then we are switching on electric field which is accelerating the electron towards the channeltron. The channeltron amplifies the signal, and we are getting finally an efficiency which is 40%. So one Rydberg over 2 is detected. And we are counting directly the number of ions. We are able to count a single ion. So a single ion implies that we are observing 2 Rydberg which are excited. These are 4 ions which are excited. The channeltron typically gives responses which are not uniform. So they are this is typical channeltron. In principle, what we tried is try to derive from arrival time information on the point where we are creating ions. This will be certainly interesting piece of information in order to make some sort of tomography of Rydberg, and because we are so far off, this cannot be done. Certainly an experiment where the channeltron is located just immediately below the Rydberg could do ion tomography or Rydberg tomography of the system. This is something which is feasible. We are still hoping to get this information, not at the present stage.
What limits the detection efficiency?
The solid angle. So
the channeltron doesn't suck the ions in?
No, it's not. No, not a channeltron. No, it is. Well, there is some sort of electrode here which is making a sort of a focus in the system. So we are applying electric field here, which are attracting the ion, electron, and then it's focused here. And in some way, this system is not completely attracted the atom. So there are 4 electrons which are created here. This electron try to make some very strange trajectory. We have tried to understand what is trajectory, and we are not able a perfect clue. So maybe there are still some tiny charges which are around that we don't observe. These charges could be affected. So, as I said, this initial choice of 14 centimeter today is very bad. You don't know when you're starting an experiment what's happening. So, certainly, in any case, before.
So, when you do the detection, how big are the electric fields? Well, they're
The fields are the field at the first electrode is typically a few hundred watt. Okay. So that, which is accelerating electron. But this electrode is already 5-6 centimeters away from the center.
Yeah, but anyway, those fields are going to be much bigger than the ones caused by your stray charges, at least from your measurements of them.
But there's no electrode on the other side.
Right.
Charges electrostatic is very, very bad.